Initially, I hated Henry because he was the son of the dean I hated the most. An uncompromising old man gave birth to another unfeeling young man. They always cooperated to block me at the classroom door. Oliver, 10 minutes late, deduct 2 discipline points. The number of students absent from morning reading in class 6 exceeds 5%, deduct 3 class points. The familiar nightmare voice lingered in my ears like chanting scriptures. When I opened my eyes, I suddenly faced a cold face. He lifted his eyelids and looked at me indifferently. What are you standing there for? Why don't you go in? At 7:30 in the morning, the sun penetrated the corridor of the teaching building and shone right on Henry. A fair-skinned and handsome alpha young master, the recognized top student, campus heartthrob, and student council president of No. 7 Middle School. All noble and wonderful words were concentrated on this person. And I was the feared bully in school, a low-class alpha whose father was a murderer. I squeezed the fist hidden under my school uniform sleeve. It hurt quite a bit. So I involuntarily grinned wickedly and forced him step by step into the dark. Henry. I didn't expect to see him again in this lifetime. A person who had been dead for 10 years. A lifelong rival who looked down on me and despised me. A coward who was supposed to fight with me all his life but prematurely escaped the misery on his own. I stared at those thin lips that kept chattering. I felt an itch in my heart and evil thoughts welled up. Oliver, are you looking at me like this because you want to fight? Henry neatly put away the disciplinary card, pursed his lips, and raised his chin against the light. You've been late 3 times and participated in 5 fights this month. I advise you. I didn't want to hear Henry talk, so I blocked the rest of his words with my own lips. As a greeting gift from Mr. Oliver at the age of 28. I took those thin lips that never said anything nice into my mouth and released quite a bit of alpha pheromones to disgust him. Unexpectedly, they were very soft and even a bit sweet. Not as hard and astringent as I had imagined. It turned out that the answer I had firmly believed in for 2 lifetimes was wrong. I continued to press forward in Henry's stunned gaze, avoiding the surveillance cameras, and pried open his jaws by holding the back of his head. I invaded like an army on a long drive offensive. The annoying Henry finally fell silent. Probably because the shock was too great, he even forgot to resist and let me kiss him in the corridor filled with the sound of reading until his eyes were blurred and he was almost out of breath. So the young master's lips are so soft. After the kiss ended, I wickedly licked my lips to savor it and didn't feel the slightest bit of nausea towards my alpha kind. On the contrary, the air was filled with the bitter fragrance of violets and I even tasted a hint of sweetness. Pheromones? Henry leaned against the wall behind him, covering his mouth with his hand and gasping for breath. His eyes were as red as a rabbit's. After he came to his senses, there was a loud slap and a roar. Oliver, are you crazy? Yes, I'm crazy. I have a dirty disease, a mental illness, rabies, and I even picked up garbage to eat this morning. I was strangely excited by the slap. I stroked his lips that were kissed swollen and forced him to shrink into the corner with his pupils trembling. Honor student, I won't let you bully me anymore. If you dare to provoke me again, even if you're an alpha, I'll kill you. That morning, Henry walked back to the classroom holding on to the wall. His tall and lanky yet persistently upright back was as rigid and pretentiously aloof as he was. We're in the same class, yet he always catches me to deduct points from the class. Isn't he just trying to isolate me from the whole class? How ridiculous. However, Henry doesn't know that I've been reborn. I was reborn from a capitalist who had competed in the arena of fame and fortune and climbed to the peak of power. At 28, Oliver is no longer a low-level alpha. He's a proper president of a listed company richer than Henry's mother who is in business. Staring at Henry straight back in the front row, I can't help but daydream. If he were still alive in the previous life, I would definitely humiliate him with money, making him see with his own eyes how glorious the alpha he looked down upon back then had become. Teacher, I need to go to the toilet. Halfway through the morning reading class, Henry in the front row suddenly threw down his book, stuffed something into his pocket, and rushed out of the door in a hurry. I pretended not to care and continued to read the clumsy English text. But my mind couldn't stop thinking. Just now, when Henry passed by me, his unsteady steps and his slightly trembling body under the loose school uniform. Can a kiss trigger the susceptible period? Teacher, I also need to go to the toilet. After reporting, James on the podium threw a piece of chalk at my head. As always, he's a double standard and snobbish person. I whistled like a hooligan and didn't care. I followed the remaining scent of Henry to go out and look for him. It's very strange. An alpha. Why does he smell so good? Kicking open each toilet cubicle one by one, there was the shouting of someone looking for Henry but not finding him. He's not on the third floor, not on the fourth floor, nor on the first and second floors. I ran up to the rooftop. Gently pushing open the ajar iron gate, a gust of chilly spring breeze indeed carried the familiar fragrance floating from the railing to me. However, there was actually a very inferior chemical reagent smell that didn't belong to him mixed in it. What on earth are you doing, Henry? I rushed in front of him and snatched the syringe. It was already empty. I don't know what he injected into his gland. Soon his expression returned to normal, cold as ice. His pale thin lips spat out a single word, "Get out." I was so angry that I laughed. Pinching his cheeks, I leaned in and said, "Young master, why is your mouth still so stubborn? Haven't you been kissed enough?" "Oliver." Henry suddenly looked up, but could only weakly slap my hand away and glared at me fiercely. "You said that from now on, we'd stay out of each other's way and stop disgusting each other. I told you not to provoke me, but I didn't say I couldn't provoke you." I stopped smiling and shoved the empty syringe in front of his eyes. What on earth is this? Something that can quickly calm an alpha down, but causes their body temperature to drop suddenly and makes them weak all over. It can't be an inhibitor, and it definitely has side effects. Even if I die, it has nothing to do with you, right? Henry snatched the syringe and walked out, then stopped in his tracks, turned back, and forced out a sarcastic smile. "No, if I die. Oliver, you should be very happy." There was suddenly a slight dull pain in my heart. I couldn't help but think of that afternoon 3 years ago when I learned of his death. It was also as sunny and pleasant as today. An old acquaintance said casually, "Why isn't Henry here?" "Because he jumped off a building and committed on the second night after our college entrance examination. The scene of his death was horrible. It said that he cut his wrists before jumping and his gland was also stabbed beyond recognition." At that moment, the glass in my hand was crushed with a pop and the blood was shockingly red. Clearly, I was unhappy. In my previous life, I didn't take the college entrance examination. Because Henry performed poorly in a competition, the school finally gave the only recommended admission quota to me. A backward student who regarded studying as a joke and breaking discipline as a daily routine. Many students in Class 6 were indignant and made sarcastic remarks about me. So after leaving school in a hurry in April that year, I cut off contact with everyone in Nanjing and didn't look back until I achieved success in my career. That's why I didn't learn the truth about Henry's death until a class reunion 7 years later. Those in the know said that Henry's death was dealt with casually. There was no funeral, no tombstone, and his ashes were scattered into the sea by his mother. Later, I went to that sea many times. I was not reconciled. What supported me to reach the peak of power in those years was the contemptuous look in Henry's eyes. If he's dead, what's the meaning of all the success, failure, and the pride of looking down on other alphas to me? There's no sense of achievement at all. So, Henry, he can't die before me. In this life, he's doomed to be entangled with me and never have peace. Later when I returned to the classroom, Henry ignored me for the whole day. It wasn't until the next day, during the English class, that the class teacher, James, randomly selected students to recite the text. Considering that I spent 3 class periods going to the toilet yesterday, he retaliated by choosing me. I have a photographic memory and I can also read English. However, with my unchangeable regional accent, it instantly drew laughter from the whole class. Is Oliver really from the countryside? His English has a rural dialect flavor. It's so funny. Stop laughing. His real father killed someone. Be careful, he gets angry and you too. James coughed twice and couldn't hold back his laughter either. Then he turned and asked Henry, who had a fluent British accent, to stand up and recite. But usually the one who always opposed me, he was unusually rebellious today. First, he deliberately recited 2 sentences with a poor accent. Then, in the jeers of the classmates, he threw down the book, looked straight at James with his downturned eyes and said, "Sorry, I can't remember very clearly." James looked a bit embarrassed. But as soon as Henry was laughed at, he immediately slapped the table and stopped them. "What are you all laughing at? Do you think your accents are very standard? It's the pot calling the kettle black." The classmates pouted and shut up. They secretly cursed this society where one's family background matters. Only I was in a daze for the whole class. Staring at Henry's thin back, I tried hard to recall my past life. Why can't I remember that the young master ever spoke up for me? That evening after school, my shabby second-hand phone received a text message about a bank card deposit. It was mid-March and the sponsor transferred the sponsorship money on time. This sponsor, who has never shown up, has been sponsoring me since I was admitted to the key high school in the city and has been transferring money for 3 consecutive years. Later, when I achieved success and fame, I wanted to reward him handsomely, but I couldn't find him no matter how hard I tried. He seemed to have vanished into thin air, leaving not a single clue. He didn't even leave a signature. Now that I've finally reborn, I not only have to prevent Henry from committing but also find my benefactor to thank him in person and repay his kindness. The next day was a weekend and a monthly holiday. I took all the money I had on hand and went to a securities company in the city to buy a few stocks. I made a profit on the day trading. The money I invested quickly multiplied several times and I made a fortune. I took this money and found a hacker to help me find my benefactor. The hacker roughly found out the IP address of the other person's phone, but other information was well hidden and I knew nothing about it. I had no choice but to rush to the location on the map. The old city area on the outskirts of the east of Nanjing. The place where Henry often came to do volunteer work. Just as I was hesitating whether to ask him for clues, unexpectedly when I turned around, I first ran into a group of old acquaintances. Hey, the son of a school bully who's also a murderer? Those hooligans started fighting with me without a word. The fruits I bought to express my gratitude rolled all over the ground and rolled out of the end of the dark alley along the slope. As we were fighting, it suddenly started to rain heavily without warning, washing away a large amount of blood on the bluestone slabs. I spat out a mouthful of blood and wanted to stop. But the yellow-haired guy lying on the ground on the other side cursed again, a disgraceful and useless alpha meddling in other people's business. My fist uncontrollably landed on his face. I could no longer contain the surging anger within me. Like unleashing the violent nature of an alpha, I wildly pounded my fists and I wouldn't stop even when they begged for mercy. Reason told me not to fight anymore, but my emotions got the better of me. Their filthy words kept ringing in my head. I wondered if their actions were related to that person's death. Did they really defile him in the previous life? My reason was completely shattered. Until a delicate fragrance suddenly intruded into the air filled with filthy pheromones and bloodstains. Someone grabbed me hard from behind. Oliver, are you crazy? I thought I must look quite disheveled now. I was soaked by the rain and was beating people like a madman, my eyes bloodshot from rage. But when I turned around and met those almond-shaped eyes, there was no fear, disgust, or ridicule in them, only disappointment. I don't know why. Those dark eyes full of disappointment stabbed me deeply like needles. Henry threw away the umbrella, called 120, quickly dealt with the evidence left at the scene, and then quickly pulled me out of the dark alley. We were silent all the way, until we bought the inhibitors and medicine. With a cold face, he disinfected and bandaged my wounds. His rough actions made me let out a hiss. Henry then lifted his wet long eyelashes and snorted. Why didn't you die from the pain, big school bully? I suddenly felt a bit wronged. But he saved me tonight, bought the medicine, and helped me out of trouble before. So what if he was being sarcastic? I endured it. I wanted to light a cigarette to relieve my boredom, but Henry's hand that was applying the medicine suddenly trembled and quickly withdrew. I was puzzled, but still immediately put out the cigarette butt and apologized patiently. Sorry, I was out of my mind tonight. I didn't do it on purpose. I also don't have a violent tendency. Henry got up and took a breath, but didn't let it go. Later, he scolded me viciously for being incorrigible and stubborn like a reckless man who didn't care about his life. I also buried my head and admitted it all. But unexpectedly, at the Monday flag-raising ceremony. After Henry finished his speech as the student representative, his father, that middle-aged old man, tidied up his administrative jacket and stepped onto the stage in front of the whole school to scold me severely. The content was an exaggerated description of my group fight over the weekend. The last sentence was, like father, like son. And the manuscript he read was handed over by Henry himself. A 5,000-word self-criticism, a demerit record, a public criticism. It didn't matter. But precisely, the manuscript was written by Henry. A person who helped me bandage my wounds the day before yesterday and with a sharp tongue but a kind heart advised me to turn over a new leaf, actually wrote such a manuscript for his hypocritical father yesterday. Anger welled up. As soon as the flag-raising ceremony ended, I rushed to the podium, dragged Henry to a corner and questioned him. Why did you stab me in the back? Henry, you clearly don't think so. You're clearly different from others. You clearly hate that sentence the most. I couldn't help choking with sobs. Clearly, he also believed that like father doesn't necessarily mean like son. What kind of back-stabbing is this? Henry impatiently stepped back. His slightly raised eyes looked at me like I was trash, filled with a bone-chilling coldness. Given our relationship, this is at most just revenge. You, Oliver, have repeatedly violated the rules. In my eyes, you are just a... I angrily cut off what he was going to say. I know this guy's mouth is as venomous as can be. Only when I kiss him can I feel its softness. I won't be deceived by his cold exterior anymore. He struggled like a madman, but I held him down and kissed him fiercely. Kissing until our pheromones leaked out and intertwined, I tore off all my rationality and blurted out, "Henry, why do you smell so good? I really want to mark you." When I came to my senses, Henry covered his mouth with his hand. The corners of his eyes were tinged with red from anger. "Oliver, you brute. If I'm a brute, then what about you?" I wiped the blood from the corner of my mouth. "Henry, do you know why I beat up those guys?" Henry came to his senses and coldly looked up at me. "Does it matter?" Looking at this heartless face, I finally gave up and let out a soft scoff. "Henry, you have no heart. Just because blood is thicker than water, you, who think so highly of yourself, helped a teaching director who distributed all the poverty relief funds to the rich kids. You wrote such an insulting speech for him and insinuated about me in front of the whole school. You firmly believe that I'm doomed to be a good for nothing in this life, right?" Henry turned his face away and pursed his lips. There was no refutation, no explanation, and no questioning. There actually flashed a trace of grief in those eyes that I could never understand. I wanted to grab him as he was about to leave, but unexpectedly I used too much force. I tore off his school uniform jacket. His fair arms were exposed before my eyes, and I was completely stunned. Henry's left arm was full of wounds, cuts, burns, whip marks. There were densely packed scars. "You. How could this happen?" "Oliver, if you do it again, I won't let you off." Henry, whose wounds were exposed, panicked. He hastily gathered his clothes and ran towards the teaching building, even staggering and almost falling. I stood still in the same place for a long time. I remembered that no matter how hot the summer was, Henry never took off his coat and never showed his arms. Suddenly, I felt a sense of suffocation. It surged and filled my heart. Before class that day, I was caught by James on his way and taken to the dean's office in front of Henry's father, Michael. At the first sight of me, Michael frowned and murmured that how could a trash like me have the smell of violets? But he quickly denied his absurd suspicion, swallowed back the question on the tip of his tongue, and scolded me head on. Now he'll never know. 30 minutes ago, this trash, was holding Henry and kissing him desperately. I deeply defiled his high hopes, son. Oliver, it's better for a scourge like you to drop out of school earlier. Michael's harsh words brought me back to my senses. Now these words mean nothing to me. They are just the impotent rage of a defeated opponent. I was just desperately holding back the urge to rush forward, grab his collar, and question him about Henry's wounds. He is an only son from a perfect family where his father is an official and his mother is in business. He is an outstanding student in the spotlight. How could he be injured like that? But I have no right to interrogate him. Now I have no power or connections to conduct an investigation. Later, when I returned to the classroom, Henry was lying on the table, fast asleep. Catching a glimpse of his exposed nape, I involuntarily swallowed hard and couldn't take my eyes off it. It wasn't until someone suddenly clapped me on the shoulder. "Oliver, do you want to teach that damned honor student a lesson?" A curly-haired boy sat down next to me, his face full of indignation. It took me a long time to recognize him as Jack, my former loyal little follower, just because I accidentally saved him on the way home from school once. This guy has been following me for 3 years. Some time ago, Jack was caught for helping me fight. His father broke his leg, and he's been recuperating at home until now. As it turned out, this guy couldn't stay quiet for a moment. As soon as he came to school, he asked me how I wanted to get revenge on Henry and said he was willing to help. I smiled. I shifted my gaze back to Henry, my eyes teasing. I really do want to teach him a lesson. As for how to do it, I wanted to pin this hypocritical good guy against the wall and kiss him, force him to spill all his secrets, then bite his nape and give him a good hard lesson. The unspoken thoughts were truly sordid. In the end, I only dared to ask Jack to keep an eye on Henry and notice if he secretly went to the toilet or the rooftop to inject something. I wanted to know why a perfectly fine alpha like Henry Had his glands rotted beyond recognition? And why did he have so many injuries? For the time being, I put aside the matter of investigating my benefactor. I followed Henry every day, and finally rummaged through the trash cans in his villa area and found the syringe he had used. There were no words on it, only a few drops of transparent liquid remaining inside. The Shin family runs a pharmaceutical factory. This thing should be something he brought back from his mother's laboratory. But the day before the test results came out, Henry disappeared. His school bag was on the seat, but he didn't show up the whole morning. I went to the office with a 5,000-word self-criticism that I had rushed to finish during 2 Chinese classes, but he was nowhere to be seen. It wasn't until the newspaper reading time in the afternoon that the students who hadn't gone for lunch gathered in the corner and whispered to each other, "Oh my God! Such a good student is actually having a puppy love? He usually seems so rigid and heartless. He really keeps his true nature well hidden. It's not really a puppy love. He hasn't even won the other person's heart yet. He's just secretly writing cheesy love letters to confess his love. Now James and the others are going to be embarrassed. The model top student they've been praising every day has violated a major taboo. Am I the only one who is really envious of that Omega who received a love letter from the school hunk?" I frowned and listened to the whole conversation, feeling a sense of déjà vu. In my past life, it was me who found the love letter in Henry's drawer and reported it to James with my own hands. I couldn't stand to see Henry in a relationship, couldn't stand to see him being sweet and affectionate with any Omega, so I reported him out of revenge. But this time, I clearly didn't do anything. After skipping the evening self-study, I stuffed a section of steel bar into my school bag and climbed over the wall to escape from school. In my past life, Henry didn't come to school for 2 weeks because of the love letter incident. When he came back, he became very gloomy. He pulled the collar of his school uniform up to the top every day. Apart from burying his head in doing exercises, he would lie on the table and sleep, saying nothing. He was even indifferent to my occasional provocation. This situation lasted until the end of senior high school. Because of the love letter incident, he never spoke to me again. Now that the old incident is repeating itself, I can't accept such an ending. Henry's home is not far from school. After crossing a few streets, there is the villa area specially reserved for him by his mother, which is convenient for him and his father to go to school and work on weekdays. Running all the way there in a hurry, sure enough, the lights were on in the single-family villa of the Shin family. I climbed over the fence and sneaked into the yard. That old guy, Michael, was sitting in the huge living room sipping tea while the light in Henry's study on the second floor was off. I didn't dare to act rashly until Michael got up, grabbed a key on the tea table and walked towards the basement. The ventilation window of his basement is hidden beside the flower bed. Crawling over on my stomach, Michael just turned on the basement light, instantly illuminating the entire gloomy space. And finally I could see clearly. Henry, he was beaten black and blue, covered in blood, huddled in the corner like an abused cat, on the verge of death. At that moment, it was as if there was a sharp knife churning in my heart, deep and heavy, and the pain made it hard to catch my breath. There are many torture tools in the basement, like a place for detaining prisoners. I watched helplessly as Michael picked up the love letter on the ground, read it out with a look of disdain on his face, and then slandered his son with the same vicious words he used to scold poor students. He said that Henry should remember his own identity and must get rid of me to get the quota for being recommended to a prestigious school. He also said that Henry had evil intentions, was a pervert, and the love letter he wrote was disgusting, and that he would never be able to get love in his life. Every word was heart-piercing and full of blood and tears. Anger almost burned away my reason. That beast in human clothing, Michael, roared at Henry and then lit a cigarette. The moment the fire was lit, Henry's body trembled violently. Michael took in this scene at a glance. He took the glowing spark and squatted in front of Henry, slowly bringing that thing closer to Henry's left arm. At that moment, I couldn't hold it in any longer. After taking out a steel bar and smashing the ventilation window in front of me, I jumped in and knocked Michael down heavily. Then, recklessly, I picked up a whip and lashed it at his face, lashing again and again as if to vent my anger, beating him until he was unable to fight back. until Henry got up and tugged at the hem of my clothes, shaking his head at me weakly. I sniffed, picking up the crumpled love letter on the ground. I picked him up and fled outside. That night, I carried Henry on my back for a long time. Tirelessly, I rushed to a hospital, accompanied him to treat his wounds, and took him back to the rental house. After we got back, Henry curled up in the corner at the end of the bed, half burying his face as he explained. My parents used to be very good to me, but later, for some reason, I became the most hated person in their eyes. When I was 15, my mother used a business trip as an excuse and never came home for years. My father thought it was me who broke up the family. Later, he became a different person. He forced me to get first place in the grade. Whenever I made a mistake in any aspect, he would beat me. This isn't just beating, it's domestic violence. Thinking of the wounds and scars on his body, I couldn't help but grab his wrist and question him. Why didn't you call the police? I don't want to cause any more trouble for my mother. Henry raised his lifeless eyes. She has given me enough. Michael is only bad to me, but he is good to her. I thought I could just endure it a little longer. Endure until the previous life, until the end of I couldn't tell him, and he wouldn't believe me either. The air was stiff and silent for a long time. Finally, he suddenly smiled at me and murmured, "Oliver, thank you for taking this annoying person like me home." In a shabby tube-shaped building, there's a rented room that leaks air and rain. Henry actually calls it home. I kind of want to laugh, but my nose is so sore that I can't hold back my tears. Tears well up uncontrollably. I heard that Michael was sent to the city hospital that night. He took a 1-month leave and didn't dare to call the police to make a big deal out of it. I wanted to report it but was stopped by Henry, who was sick in bed, and he mercilessly drove me away. He said that patients need rest to recover from their injuries and didn't want to see me wandering around all day, listen to my nagging, and eat the unpalatable things I cooked. I was almost amused by anger and wanted to confront him but was stopped by his feeble breathing. It's like having a fishbone stuck in my throat. In the past, I always hoped that Henry would fall from grace and tried to see him looking no longer proud and in a mess. Now that day has really come. Henry's perfect family is fake, and easily getting the first place in the grade is also fake. He is usually beaten and mentally oppressed at home and lives even worse than me, an orphan. I don't feel the slightest bit of pleasure about this result. Strangely, my heart only aches dully, which is extremely painful. Oliver. Ha! Henry suddenly looked up from his arms and said in a muffled voice, "Thank you for taking me in. I'll pay you back when I get better and go back." I was somewhat speechless and waved my hand, saying that I didn't care about it. For me, who is 28 years old, money has long been something external to the self. Those things that I've never obtained and always keep in mind are what truly deserve to be cherished. Then what do you care about? I just want. I bent down to tie my shoelaces. When I looked up, I suddenly met a pair of eyes like a spring pond, hazy and affectionate. It was intoxicating. It was extremely similar to the face that I could never have in my dreams during countless midnight awakenings in my past life, like a distant and illusory hope. Why do you have so many questions? Go back and lie down to have a good rest. I quickly tried to make up for it, slung my school bag over my shoulder and rushed out of the door. And outside, separated by an iron gate, I unconsciously covered my mouth and swallowed hard, trying to suppress the restless alpha pheromone and the pounding of my heart like a drum. The fact that I skipped class wasn't discovered. Recently, due to the seasonal flu, many people asked for leave, so James didn't notice me. But in the physical education class, Jack came to me with a playful smile to claim credit. "Oliver, hasn't it been much quieter lately? Although I haven't been able to fight for you recently, I've indirectly solved that annoying guy for you. Look, now no one is catching you for skipping class or being late, and old man Goo has also gone home on leave to discipline his son." I suddenly stood up. "What did you say?" "It's that love letter. Thanks to you, Oliver, for asking me to keep an eye on Henry, I had the chance to find his love letter and report it." The vocabulary book in my hand slapped to the ground, scaring Jack into stammering. What's wrong, Oliver? Isn't he your mortal enemy? Why do you look so angry?" "How could I not be angry?" I grabbed Jack's shoulders and roared, "You idiot, do you know?" The swear words were on the tip of my tongue, but I couldn't utter them. He didn't know what consequences the report would bring, and neither did I in my previous life. And I, who had done the same stupid thing. What right did I have to scold him? Filled with anger that had nowhere to go, I angrily pushed him away and slapped myself twice. Then, ignoring the looks of others as if I were a lunatic, I squatted in a corner and took out the love letter from my pocket. I saw this thing in Henry's drawer the other day. I originally thought that as long as I suppressed my jealousy and inexplicable unease this life and ignored it, pretending not to see it, it would be okay. But unexpectedly, in the end, I still indirectly caused him harm. I smoothed out the crumpled letter paper. The sunlight shone on the elegant and beautiful lines of the words. I found it glaring and didn't dare to look. I folded it in half and stuffed it into the pure, white envelope. But when sealing it, the wax seal accidentally rolled to the ground, revealing a small line of black words. Oliver. To receive. The night was slightly cool and a dim incandescent lamp flickered in the rental house. I paced back and forth downstairs in the tenement building, looking at the dim light and hesitating to move forward. I looked at the blurred name under the wax seal 30 times over and asked all the classmates around me. Everyone said those two characters were pronounced Oliver. It wasn't my eyes playing tricks on me. It really says, to Oliver. Just those 3 words and the word like in the first line of the love letter have burned out all my brain cells, making me feel like a fool in a daze all afternoon. Finally, I couldn't hold it back and skipped the evening self-study. I've been wandering downstairs of my home until now. My heart is about to jump out of my chest. The previously impending but always puzzling emotion was instantly relieved when I saw the word like. It turns out that I dreamed of Henry repeatedly in my previous life, not because I hated him to the core. It was me, a despicable and shameless person, because I couldn't reach his level and couldn't have his love, so I put a hat named hate on it and turned my grief and indignation into motivation. Now 2 reincarnations have passed. I don't know what kind of attitude I should take to respond to Henry. Until the 3rd hour of the cold wind blowing, there was suddenly a loud crackling sound upstairs, accompanied by Henry's heavy gasps. When I rushed into the rental house, Henry was lying on the ground in a disheveled state. His fair skin was covered with a thin layer of sweat and his body was still trembling slightly. My heart tightened suddenly. Rushing forward to carry him back to the bed, I felt guilty and wanted to run away. Is it your susceptible period? There are inhibitors in the drawer. I'll get them for you. No. Henry suddenly hooked my neck and shook his head weakly beside my ear. It's not the susceptible period. It's... The ambiguous gasps almost poured into my heart. I lay beside his neck and swallowed hard before hoarsely saying, if it's not the susceptible period, then what is it? Henry held back until the corners of his eyes were red. He still gritted his teeth and shook his head. His voice was almost on the verge of crying. Oliver, you mark me. I really can't stand it. I'm in so much pain. Before he finished speaking, I urgently kissed him. Holding him and kissing him passionately, I still revealed the tyrannical nature of an alpha and impatiently pulled open his collar to occupy the territory. When my canine teeth pierced that soft flesh, I thought randomly, even if I can't truly possess him, even if our natures are incompatible, it doesn't. The word so-called hadn't even popped out. When the alpha pheromone successfully dissolved into his blood, all the pessimistic thoughts in my head suddenly stopped. I froze in place. Listening to Henry's unbearable moans in my ear, I came to my senses blankly. I actually marked Henry in alpha. After the marking was over, Henry fell into a deep sleep directly. His body was still a bit hot. I stayed by the bedside and changed cold towels for him all night, thinking about taking him to see a doctor when he woke up. How could an alpha be marked by another alpha? Henry's gland must be having problems. But before he woke up, the hospital called me, urging me to pick up the test results of the syringe. I could barely understand the test report, but I couldn't believe it. It said that the liquid in the syringe was a compound reagent that could make an omega show the sexual characteristics of an alpha and suppress its own heat period. This thing is currently a clinical drug and is not available on the market at all. The doctor also said that it has great side effects. If used too much, one will die. I blankly recalled my past life. After Henry lost that crucial competition, he coldly said, "Congratulations" to me in front of the school leaders and walked past me without looking at me. I once firmly believed that it was a sneer and that I got the recommendation by luck. But it was only after being reborn that I discovered Henry's blessing was sincere. And that opportunity for guaranteed admission was also because he knew from the very beginning that he was going to die. And he voluntarily withdrew and left it for me. When I rushed back to the rental house with the test report, there was a large group of bodyguards in suits gathered downstairs. I pushed through the crowd and squeezed in. I saw Henry following a woman in a high and tailored suit. He only stopped when he glanced back and saw me. He said something to that woman, then stepped closer, pulled me to an empty corner, and stuffed a bank card into my hand. He said to himself, "The money in here is what my dad owes you. I know about the thing that he deliberately had your poverty relief funds removed." "I'm sorry." "You've already said sorry." I took out the love letter I always carried with me. There are a lot of explanations for the misunderstandings between us in here. It's a note that you wrote to me but didn't intend to give to me, right? Henry's pupils suddenly constricted when he saw the fallen wax seal. "How did you?" "Of course I know, Henry. I couldn't help but choke with sobs. You wanted to explain all the misunderstandings between us, but you thought I hated you, so you only dared to hide my name under the wax seal. The reason you said you were disliked by your parents was that you developed into an omega at 15. And they always made you take the reagent to disguise yourself as an alpha. Actually, you were so forced that you couldn't go on living at all, so you provoked me to participate in the competition, gave the guaranteed admission quota to me, and planned to use your own death to take revenge on your dad." "That's enough." Henry shook off my hand, bit his pale lips, and sneered disdainfully. "Oliver, do you have any evidence for all you've said? Do you want to threaten me to get money? Or, I want you." He stood there, stunned and speechless. I pressed on, advancing step by step. "Understood, Henry?" I said. "What a coincidence, I like you too." The wind brewed in early spring was a bit astringent, but it suddenly melted Henry's eyes that were as cold as ice all year round. Finally, he showed a hint of emotion. "I know the love letter was for me, and I also know it was you who secretly sponsored me for 2 years. Stop being stubborn. It's useless. Henry, trust me. I can save you. Come with me. Let me make it up to you and take good care of you for the rest of my life. Just give me one chance, okay?" Henry didn't go with me. He hesitated for a moment, but finally took 2 steps back and tugged at his lips. "Even if I like you, what right do you have now to make me trust you and leave with you without a worry?" After he left, I stood still in the same place for a long time. I thought he was right. As a failure among alphas, I really had no right and was not worthy of him. But Henry had lied to me. The reason he didn't go with me was definitely not that he didn't trust me. It was because he was afraid of dragging me down. Michael was not a person who would easily let things go. The last time I beat him up like that, he didn't dare to call the police to arrest me for the moment. But he would definitely take revenge on me. I soon waited for this day. When those familiar yellow-haired guys blocked me again at the alley that was the only way home, I smiled and thought to myself, sure enough, they were indeed sent by Michael to deliberately block me and provoke me, trying to completely ruin me. They wanted to ruin me just to make Henry, this exam-taking tool, become the unique top student and win that so-called face for him. What the hell are you smiling at, Oliver? You beat up my brothers like that last time. It's time for you to atone for your sins this time. As the hooligan leader said, he threw a punch at me, but I dodged it by stepping aside. I took off my school bag and didn't fight back. I still smiled and said, "How much did Michael pay you?" "I'll pay you double." Nonsense. As I unzipped the school bag, the swear words suddenly stopped. The school bag I brought today was filled with a whole bag of cash. Still want to fight? If not, let's talk about a cooperation. I gave them a deposit of 10,000 yuan and asked them to beat me up severely. The only requirement was to run to the Shin family to tip off Michael and then pretend to accidentally reveal it to Henry. Last time when I asked him if he knew why the fight happened, he must have privately investigated who these hooligans worked for, and it wouldn't be difficult for him to find out it was Michael. I want Henry to know. Not only him, but I've also suffered a lot. He's a typical person with a sharp tongue but a soft heart. Even if he can endure it himself, he definitely can't bear to watch the person he likes being tortured and living a life worse than death. When Henry rushed to the scene, I spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot. The hooligans beat me half to death. While kicking me, they also called me a trash and said they would kill me according to the instructions of the sponsor. When Henry pushed them away with red, rimmed eyes and picked me up, he was almost on the verge of collapse. To make it look real, all the injuries were really beaten out and the blood was also from me biting my tongue on purpose. Pretending to be strong, I raised my hand, touched his chin and comforted him while spitting out blood. It's okay. Since you want to endure it, I'll accompany you. They can't kill me. The blood I coughed up stained his blue and white school uniform red and seeped into the bandage on his wrist. On the verge of losing consciousness, Henry was shaking so badly that he finally shook his head angrily with a sob in his voice. "I'll call the police." "I will. Oliver, I'll go with you. Please don't die. Don't fall asleep." When I woke up again, I was in a hospital filled with the smell of disinfectant. The moment I felt someone tightly holding my palm, I knew. I won the bet. Later, after my wounds healed, I went to the detention center. I took out 100,000 to silence those hooligans and visited Michael at the same time. This chief culprit who embezzled, committed domestic violence, and instigated minors to commit crimes. He was so angry that he gritted his teeth and still had the nerve to threaten me, saying that he would definitely not let me and Henry off when he got out. I pretended to be scared and said, "I'm so scared." Then I hired a lawyer at a high price and asked him to make Michael be punished for multiple crimes and sentenced to life imprisonment. On the day when the court session ended, Henry's mother also came. She didn't know about the sufferings Henry had endured over the years. After learning the truth, she was very heartbroken, but that was all. Those so-called side effect free conversion agents she brought back had already caused irreversible harm to Henry's body and mind. When everything was settled, I transferred schools with Henry and went to Yunqing, which was a great distance away from Nanqing. We rented an apartment near the school there and started over. His scars gradually healed, and his glands also improved under the treatment of medicine, restoring the sexual characteristics of an omega. On the night when I smelled his real pheromones, I turned around and licked my fangs, silently reciting the great compassion mantra in my heart. As a result, this person was completely unaware and came out of the shower wearing only a bath towel casually, exposing a large expanse of fair collarbone. "Do you want a bite?" Henry's overly straightforward words made me stagger and almost fall. But with a calm look on his face, he even lifted the bath towel and leaned in to pin me against the wall. "Come and bite if you want. It's not the first time anyway." I swallowed hard, eagerly buried my face in his neck and sucked, warning hoarsely, "Henry, I'm not a gentleman. Don't regret it tonight." He let out a snort. He stroked my head as if soothing a child. "I don't regret it, Oliver.